special anniversary. Before we get rolling into things, I wanted to invite up a really good friend of ours, a man who is an artist who's really inspired myself and who's also supported my own work for many years, long before I was ever a published writer. He was a supporter of my work, and his family has roots in the San Joaquin Valley. His own father, Jose Montoya, is somebody that I met and looked up to for many years, was a kind and generous man also, and he continues a legacy, but also he has his own legacy with Culture Clash, and and he's been in different movies that we appreciate. Yeah, round of applause, please. And he's doing us the wonderful, wonderful honor of being here, and he's going to give us a little introduction tonight, a proper introduction, my good friend, Richard Montoya.
I was honored to be here tonight, really, for Tim and Ana, and it just it's kind of boony. I wish I had a. How we doing? Testing 1, 2. Well done. How about a round of applause for Ana? This might be the singer's mic. Testing 1, 2. But I was sent a pre-copy of Tim's beautiful book. And I want to get to this. I have roughly 10 minutes, and I know we want to get on to Tim Z and Ana, and I'm just kind of warming up the room and gauging the room. And we talked by phone the other day, and what did you do all through COVID? And I'd been writing this play and juggling all these projects and getting back into the swing of public appearances. And this is one of the first, and it's going to be a little awkward and fun. Real soft show. I see a lot of veteranos here, a lot of writers in the room. A little bit of fear and envy and all those things that come. A lot of friends, Brother Ballard, and LA Times, I think, is here. I don't know if that's Gustavo or not. Clark Kent back there. But a friend of mine, given what Tim's book has done, both books really, Mañana Means Heaven and All They Will Call You, has humanized a segment of society that we sweep under or not account for or not take measure. And I can't tell you like yourselves what this last week has done as Asian senior citizens are slaughtered in Monterey Park, as farm workers are slaughtered in Half Moon Bay, as a black motorist is beat to the end of his life, that just aired this afternoon.
Yeah. Horrific.
That these things are horrific, and they shake us to our core. And Tim's wonderful book forces us to reconcile each and every one of these lives that must be accounted for. Whether we measure those lives. I was reading today again the beautiful detail, the responsibility of Tim's detail, and the love letters, and the accounts of the newspapermen, and the accounts of the lawmen, and accounts of the lovers, the husbands, the wives, even the pilots. And tremendous, tremendous detail that plants a flag firmly into that notion that we will account for each and every life. And what an astonishing week it has been. I went out to Monterey Park. My son's Montessori tutors are there. Our pharmacy is there. I have found sometimes a quiet neighborhood, doors locked, where I want to do business. I wanted some glasses the other day. I go, you know what? I want glasses from over there. They probably got some good old, Chinese man glasses, and I couldn't get the lady to open the door for me. Like, hey, do you have an appointment? No, come back. And I was telling Gustavo earlier that I've been thinking a lot this week about Jonathan Gold, because Jonathan's writing took the world to San Gabriel Valley and won a Pulitzer, by the way, for all his writings, from Pico to San Gabriel Valley. And we all rushed in, didn't we, to find the perfect bowl of noodles, to find the perfect dim sum. And we must give credit to the writing of Jonathan and how it ricochets back and keeps the focus on tonight's proceedings, and to celebrate these beautiful books, this beautiful couple, Ana and Tim. It's just the minute he called, I was honored, and it was so warm. And then the events of the week took shape. And a friend of mine said, you know, by gathering tonight, you're holding on to these threads of sanity, which is what's happening right now. In the face of madness, we're hanging on. What are we doing? We're holding this space, which is an often overused term, but we are holding this space in defiance. And Monterey Park will dance again.
Yes.
And Tim will write again. And Anna will sing again. And my daughter's name is Luna, and this was the lunar, New Year, the celebration. And we just went through a harrowing odyssey with her own personal health, and happy to have our little Lunita dancing once again too. So thank you, as we take measure of all the victims of the Los Gatos airplane crash, we read about each of them, we humanize them, and it reminded me a lot. I had to give Tim my dad's book, Abundant Harvest, tonight, because Jose Montoya did the same exact thing with his writings. Farm workers, cantineras, people working on the docks, even servicemen and women, he humanized them. And I love that fabric that Tim has cut from the San Joaquin Valley, And when you read his threads, it's nothing but a who's who, an all-star of, Juan Felipe is chiming in, and Esther Hernandez is chiming in, and Lorna and Lucha, and our greatest goddamn writers, man, who came from the valley. It was one generation ago. It took one generation of our raza to go to from these stellar writers that leads us what? Directly to Steinbeck and Soroyan. For Tim, directly to Woody. Directly to Pete Seeger. Damn it, we have to plant that flag as we're out there pitching Latinx rom-coms. To who? To what? And we're doing this terrible job of telling our stories, and this is why I love Tim. This is his relentless scholarship, his dogged tenacity to get the story right. And when you read All They Will Call You, I think you will agree with me on that. I have just a few more seconds. And I wanted to share with you, because one thing I told Tim, that I was writing a piece about the valley, the San Joaquin Valley, as it relates to my father's first generation that took their GI Bills from service, American service, Cesar in the Navy, my dad also in the Navy, my uncle Malachias in the Marine Corps, and they took their GI Bills and they went to art school. And so I've been tracking. Gentleman just earlier today mentioned Berkeley to me. And I've been tracking our first Chicanos on Telegraph in Berkeley. And it's 1959, the year of my birth. Age myself. Which is why I sometimes need a little courage. This is for the after party later. Don't call HR on me. But I find my father and his compadres on Telegraph 1959. Damn it. They're not just impacted by the beats, they're working with the beats. They are there. Ginsberg's at the Berkeley Public Library in another 2 years, but he's already on campus. Mexico City Blues hits the avenue like the Talmud with Talmudic force. Ferlinghetti's not even in North Beach yet. But we have Chicanos in the Fillmore. Ernie Palominos in the Fillmore with Luis Cervantes, Lorna D. Cervantes' father, because they're jazz bums and they're going to all the jazz clubs in the Fillmore. This is what we feel passionate about in our history. So in this poem, I'll try to keep it short. A medium appears to me. It's March 15th, 2020, a good luck year of the Chinese calendar, and that's when our theater is shut down. Culture Clash is raging on stage at the Berkeley Repertory Theater. We just opened up a show. All the raza from the Bay Area is coming back, and we're just having this really wonderful celebration of our work, our life's work, and it's really hitting. Reviews are through the roof, sold out for weeks, and then COVID shuts us down. So that night we were lecturing at Cal, and I just kind of hit Telegraph that night, and I ended up in a kind of a stupor, and I end up in front of the Hangout, the cafe where my dad and his compadres, Robbie's Cafe right there on Telegraph, between two bookstores, Moe's Books and another bookstore. And so a medium appears to me, and I ask her very late in the play. I asked my dad's maestra, his teacher, an Anglo woman, whose father built California College of Arts and Crafts with the likes of Joaquin Miller. it's heavy, right? And I asked Miss Purdy, my dad's mentor, and again, I'm going to lead this back to Tim. Hey, Gilbert. Chicano time, man.
You're inviting the time tomorrow.
Yes. I asked Mrs. Purdy, can a poem be haunted? Could they? Poems haunt the children. Singular poems, yes. Bad poems, lie. And your papa, Jose, insusceptible to untruths. Is my blood haunted, Miss Purdy? The slipstream that brought me here to you is not for me to say, Carnalito, she says. Am I dying, Miss Purdy? Aren't we all, mijo? I remember that in my dad's poem, Gabby Took the 99, has ghosts. There's a motel room in his poem, El Louis, like in a Bogart movie. Louis dies alone in a rented room. The fallen war hero, La Chiva, heroine, se cayó just off Highway 99. That 99 again. I tell the lady, my brothers and I have been running from that motel room, driven by my dad's verse our entire lives. A cruel hoax. A ghost roadman. Your papa's poems have bade you well. Yeah, well, words cut your bone and you'd never know. Yes, the marrow, where they tap the valley ditch water and the poet's tears from hetchy hetchy. Ripples make wakes. Ripples and wakes make good words. Undercurrents and riptides. She asks, have any of your siblings ever drowned? Pert near, I say, at the mouth of the Klamath, the confluence of Eel River. And then at the American River of the South Fork, up at Kybers, my dad reached down and plucked me from the treacherous waters of the cold rapids, saved, standing here now to tell the tale. And I'm still mad at his passing. It was just so huge, scattered the familia in many different directions. Whoever you're most mad at, she asked, can you find them and forgive them? I respond, I haven't that muscle or that memory. Your father was a wordsmith to his people, not their estimated prophet. Why did he come back to me now, I ask? Why? She says, poets, especially Chicano ones, of your father's ilk and code, come hard like rain for their own. I ask, do thespians come hard for their own? Oh, hell no, she says. That hater-ishi bunch that you all are. And the Chicanos of Telegraph armed themselves for hard times to come, refined their syntaxes, razor sharpened their signifiers, never permitting the deadly earnest talk of existentialism to rob their essential Chicano humor cultivated in the cruel fields of the San Joaquin. Good poems don't lie. Tim Z. Hernandez's books do not lie. Relentless, tireless, his details are his gift to us. Back to Mr. Tim Z.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Anna? We wanted to actually.
That was so beautiful. Thank you, Richard, so much for sharing that with us. I want to take this moment to let's go. Thank you. Hi. I just want to take this moment to give a land acknowledgement to the native tribes of Los Angeles, Tongan, Tavian Nation tribes, and many, many more of this area. And I just wanted to say thank you all for joining us.
Can you raise the volume a little bit? We're having trouble hearing you back here.
Oh, I'll speak up, sorry. Very, very grateful that you all have joined us, and it's a beautiful thing to be up here to share this experience with you as well on the 75th anniversary of the plane wreck at Los Gatos, and very, very, just very grateful for your attendance.
We also want to offer tonight's presentation as a, consider it an offering of love and light in these, difficult times, as Richard spoke to. But also, too, if you've had any, this is an ancestral night. This is a story of the ancestors. I have to say that outright. And so, we all come from someone. We all come from our own ancestors. And I want us to acknowledge that for a moment. We're going to kind of not call it a moment of silence, but just a sort of opening, an awakening of that. So give us a minute where you can just maybe think about somebody in your own life who's passed on before you, your grandmother, your grandfather. Just for a minute, invoke their image, invoke their name, and just kind of sit with their presence for a little bit, because I assure you they are all here with us tonight, all of them. On January 28, 1948, the United States government was deporting 28 Mexican bracero workers from Oakland, California, down to the San Diego border. An hour into the flight, they left at 9:30 in the morning from Oakland. An hour into the flight, the left engine started to smoke. And before the pilot, who was really experienced, before he could even react to the smoke in the left engine, the unthinkable happened. The engine caught fire and it torched the left wing of the airplane completely off, and the plane began to tumble in the sky, spilling. According to eyewitnesses, it was spilling people out of the hole in the airplane as the airplane began to spiral down into what is known as Los Gatos Canyon in Fresno County, there in the Central Valley. And according to the newspaper reports, the way that the airplane hit was nose first. So all the people inside that airplane were pulled through a sieve of metal and propellers and each other into one small fiery grave in what is now Los Gatos Creek in Coalinga. And everyone was indistinguishable. They couldn't tell who was who. There was just no way to identify the remains. And yet, the 4 American crew members were all sent home to their respective, to their families and their respective communities. They came to Long Beach. Marion Ewing, the co-pilot, came to Long Beach, where he was from. The immigration officer, Frank Chaffin, was sent to Berkeley, his remains. And Bobby and Frank Atkinson, husband and wife, the pilot and the stewardess, were sent back by train all the way to Rochester, New York, which is geographically farther than Aguascalientes, than Charco de Pantoja, Guanajuato, than Jalisco, and Mexico City, where all the passengers were from. The remains of the Mexican passengers were all dumped into a mass unmarked grave in Central California, in Fresno, at Holy Cross Cemetery. At the time, they called it the largest mass grave in California's history. Okay? To add insult to injury, all the newspapers across the country wrote about the 4 American crew members and mentioned their names and even profiled them. Talked about how Frank Atkinson was a World War II pilot, how Bobby Lillian Atkinson was actually they said she was a bowling champion in Rochester, New York, but referred to the Mexican passengers only as deportees. Now, news spread all across the country because it was also considered the worst plane crash in California's history at the time. And one of our favorite folk music icons, Woody Guthrie, he heard about it all the way in New York. He was living off of Coney Island at the time, and he heard about it through the radio. And through the radio, they mentioned also just deportees, and it pissed him off. And something about Woody is that he knew the power of names. He knew the inherent power of our names. He had written songs about just names. He has a whole album of Sacco and Vanzetti, the labor activists, in which he just says, Sacco, 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 I'm just going to sing your name, just sing your name, just sing. That's the whole album. He also wrote a song about a ship that was, it was sunk during World War II. It was a battleship called the Good Reuben James. And the battleship actually had sunk, and it killed 100 American sailors during World War II. And the American government wanted to keep it hush, and the media didn't talk about it, and it pissed him off also. And in his song about the Good Reuben James, he actually says, actually, this is funny because I had a chance to meet with Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie's best friend. This was a couple of months before Pete Seeger died. He invited me up to Beacon, New York, and he said to me, Woody was big on names. This is Pete, that was my Pete Seeger. So Woody was big on names, you know that. And Woody had a song in which he wrote about this sinking of the Good Reuben James, and it was a 20-minute song, and all he did was he recited all 100 names. That was the song. And we said to him, Woody, nobody wants to hear people's names for 20 minutes. He was with the Almanac Singers at the time, and he said, why don't you come up with a catchy chorus line or something that gets to the same point? And Woody, begrudgingly said, well, all right. And so what he came up with was this. Oh, what were their names? Tell me, what were their names? Did you have a friend on the Good Reuben James? Oh, what were their names? So by the time the plane crash happened, and he heard the omission of their names, it pissed him off. And he sat down to write a poem. And in his poem, he attempts to restore the dignity of the passengers by assigning them fake names. He says, goodbye to my Juan, goodbye, Rosalita, adios, mis amigos, Jesus y Maria. You won't have a name when you ride that big airplane. All they will call you will be deportees. Deportees. And if any of you write poetry, it'll just sit in your shoebox for about 9 years before it gets published, right? Mind you, anyways. And that's what happened, actually. His poem just sat in his shoebox for like 9 years until a college student, a 20-year-old college student by the name of Martin Hoffman, picked up the words and said, and actually Martin, there's a recording of Martin, he says, thought it needed a tune to it, so here's what happened when I put the two together. And he begins to sing. For the first time, he records Deportees. 20-year-old college student in Colorado. He gets that song into the hands of Pete Seeger, gets it into the hands of Joan Baez, gets it into the hands of Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Dolly Parton, and everybody under the sun, Rage Against the Machine. All of our favorite musicians have sung that song, right? It becomes one of what critics have called one of the most important protest songs of the 20th century. And obviously means just as relevant today as it was back then. More so, probably, right? Right. Well, I have to say, we would not be here. All of us wouldn't be here if it weren't for that song. I like to think that that's the power of music, right? That in the lyrics carries a message, and the message went on for 60 years. This song went on for 60 years, and it was sung all around the world in different languages. Okay? And the lyrics actually say, who are these friends, all scattered like dry leaves? The radio says they're just deportees. Who are these friends? In my mind, I like to think that, that song was that message was hanging in the air for all these years, waiting, just waiting, like good art does. It just waited for the right time, for the right conditions, for a campesino child to be born in the San Joaquin Valley, to come up like, you know, like the flowers and produce that comes up from the San Joaquin Valley, and decide, you know what, my parents are migrant farm workers, and you know what, I'm from this place, and these stories matter to me. And then that song waited for someone to come along and answer the question. Here's who these friends are. That's the power of music. And, you know, props to our singers and songwriters. Right?
Where does this road lead? I've been marching for days. Where does this road end? All my memories came away. I hear you calling. Your voice begins to take flight. I hear you pleading. Ooh, but I can't abandon this fight. Me alma va a mi mundo. Desde comenzará feita nacido en pie. Sing mothers of earth, sing to us. Your voice unites our struggle, you we trust.
Woo! This is Ana Saldaña, y'all. You can read her bio on the program that she I'm honored to have her here. She said yes to do this. So the families that I witnessed the accident were still alive when I went up into Los Gatos Canyon and began searching for them. And all of the families who had eyewitnessed this said the same thing. They said it looked as if all these lives were scattered across the canyon. There was papers, you know, flittering about everywhere. There were shoes, and there was an unexplainable amount of shoes. There were shoes everywhere. There was clothing. There was luggage hanging off of the trees. There were people hanging in the trees, body parts still in the trees, you know, and everything was in fragments. And I remember June Lee Gaston saying that. She was actually 10 years old and she had witnessed it. And she said everything was in fragments and pieces. And I carried that thought with me as I began to research, because researching a plane crash 60 years later, everything is in pieces. You're finding information in fragments. You're finding voids and holes and gaps. And I didn't know how to make sense of all that. You know, I just said, you know, I'm going to go up there and start knocking on doors. And I did. I actually went up into Los Gatos Canyon the first time by myself, and I was looking for the plane crash site, and there was a barbed wire fence, and there was a sign that said no trespassing. And I gave myself permission because I was armed with Woody Guthrie's lyrics. You know his song, "This Land Is Your Land"? Right? And I'm not talking about the elementary school version everybody learned. I'm talking about the real version. The one that, the real song he wrote with all the lyrics, in which he said, this is what I was thinking at that moment. I saw a trespassing sign there, and I remember his words. He said, I saw a sign there, said no trespassing, but on the other side, it didn't say nothing. That side is made for you and me. I said, Woody's right. Woody's right. On this side, it doesn't say nothing. It's made for you and me. So I went into Los Gatos Canyon, but everything was in pieces. And, you know, I had to sort of make sense of it for myself, and one of the things I leaned on was this analogy of La Huesera, this mythical bone woman that I had learned about, who goes around, right? She collects the bones of the dead, and she finds a way to reconstruct a life, put it back together. And I like that analogy, this bone woman. And it touched sort of this ancestral part of me, and I thought, then I need to follow my instinct. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to collect the bones of this story and put it together. I don't know how, but I'm going to follow the instinct. And one of the things I did in the very beginning was I started to just cut up the names and put them in pieces on my table, almost like you would a tarot, like tarot readings. You just spread them out across the table, and I began to even put information across my table, and I would literally sit in my room for hours. Sometimes, just hours staring at the names, intuiting, waiting for a name to leap out to me, because I didn't know how to start. In fact, I remember I was at UC Berkeley, they had invited me to present my research at the time. This was like really early on. And all these scholars were sitting around the table eyeballing me, looking at my work. It was raw material. These had scattered fragments. And he looked at me at the end and he said, "Mr. Hernandez, we have one question for you." It was like musicologist, historian, ethnographer. We have one question for you. What is your methodology? What? What is your methodology? The way you're going about finding these families, the system that you have. I wanted to tell him, mine's a methodology of ghosts. I wanted to tell him that I just spread the names out across the table and sit and look at them and wait until one of them leaps out at me. And the whole time I was waiting and looking for the first name to come out.
Me agarra la bruja, me lleva a su casa, me vuelve maceta y una calabaza. Me agarra la bruja, me lleva al cerrito, me siente sus piernas, me da de besitos. Ay, dígame usted, cuántas criaturitas se ha chupado usted. Ninguna no sé, ando de pretensiones.
And finally, the first name did leap out at me. It was the name Maria Rodriguez Santana. And her name jumped out at me, and I spent a long time, I spent 2 minutes looking at it. And then I thought, all right, I'll go the distance. So then I spent 2 days, which turned into 2 months, looking for Maria. And what really intrigued me about Maria's story was that she was the only female Mexican passenger who was killed. The only female amongst all men. And I thought to myself, it'll be easier to find her probably because she's the only female. But also what was so intriguing to me was that all the newspaper reports said that the female Mexican passenger, Maria, was found with blue baby clothes beside her. But no baby was found. And that pulled me along. I wanted to know. And so almost 2 years later, I was actually reading Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God, 2 years after searching for Maria, and I took her advice. Zora Neale Hurston says, in Their Eyes Were Watching God, she says, some years are for asking questions, others are for answering. And I said, maybe this isn't the year to answer the question of Maria. Maybe that'll come down the road. So I gave up. But then a couple of years later, in 2013, I finally found the first family. The family was Jaime and his brother Guillermo Ramirez. I love this story, y'all. I love this story because they are like brothers to me now. They wish they could have been here tonight, but they couldn't. But Jaime and Guillermo Ramirez. Oops, let me see. That's Jaime on the right and Memo on the left. I talked to Jaime Ramirez and he said, meet me at my restaurant. This is the first time I'm going to meet him. Meet me at my restaurant. I said, okay, Jaime. Where's your restaurant? He explains it to me. I said, hey man, are you guys the one with all you can eat soft serve for the kids? He goes, that's us. And I said, my parents have been taking me to your restaurant since I was a kid. Wow. He says, well, that's us. Come on. So I go over there, right? So I show up, and as a scholar, you have to find evidence, right? Real information, solid data that this family is connected to the family they claim to be, because anybody could just say it and then I can't write about it. So I got to make sure they are who they say they are. So I went in like armed with all these questions behind me and Memo. I was like, I'm going to ask them everything. The moment I showed up to the restaurant, that's how I found them. That was then when I walked in and I looked at them and I said, I got to take a picture. And he already had the photographs of his relatives displayed. He had death records, birth certificates. He had all this information. He had been researching since he said he was 19 years old and he came in the back of a Mustang. He said, I've been researching and looking for my abuelito and my tío. I have all this information, brother. And I said, thank you, Jaime. We talked for about 2 hours, and I was getting ready to leave, packing up my bags. I was just like, oh my God, this is incredible. And Jaime says, hold on. Do you have a list of the names? And I said, yeah, I do. It's from the Fresno Hall of Records. It's all screwed up. The names are all, but I have a list. And he says, oh, okay, well, because I have a list too. And I said, can I see your list? Yes, sit down. You're going way too fast. Sit down. So Jaime opens the envelope, and he pulls and he unfolds, like origami, unfolds this yellow sepia stained newspaper. It's like onion skin thin, and he lays it on the table. And it says El Faro, 1948, and it's in Spanish. And thank God for the independent press. And it's an independent press newspaper, and it says, here are the names of all the dead braceros who were killed in the accident. And it gives the first, middle, and last name of every passenger who was killed. And I was like, and then, I'm not done. And then it gives the last known address for every passenger who was killed. And then, I'm not done yet. And then it also says, and here are also their relatives and descendants. And it lists their names of everybody.
That's real reporting.
And I told Jaime, well, I don't have that list.
Can I borrow it?
And he said, well, I've been saving it all these years. And I said, what would make you think to save that, Jaime? And he said, I've been saving it for you.
Oh.
And that's the single newspaper that I used to find all the families to go around searching for the last 13 years. It's time that I used this newspaper. And before I left that day, Memo says to me, hey, Tim, if you're ever going to go into Mexico looking for the families, I'm going with you. I'm not going to take them. I'm not going to take them for now. So 2 years later, I called Memo. Hey, Memo, you ready? Because we're going to, I can call him Memo now because we're close. So, hey, Memo, you ready? We're going to go into Mexico. Yes, let's go, okay. So he says, when are we going? I said, we're going to go on the anniversary. We're going to go in January 2015. January 2015, we're going to go. I'm ready. Okay, so we start making plans, right? And then he says to me during one of our conversations, he says, hey, Tim, you know, over the phone, he says, I always see you carrying all the cameras and the recorders and all that with you. And I said, well, I'm a one-man show, dude. Like, I gotta carry, like, you know. And then he says, yeah, but listen. I have a friend in Mexico. Her name is Sandy Cano, and she, she's a videographer. She does all the videos and audio stuff. She could work for us, you know, and we could pay her, maybe. We could pay her. And I said, that's a damn good idea, Memo. Let's do it. Let's get Sandy Cano to do all of it. Okay, cool. And hey, Tim. Hey, how are we gonna drive around? I thought we'd rent a car. I don't know, like, you know. And he goes, nah, I don't know. But listen, my compadre Armando, he's a good guy. No, listen. He's a good guy. Armando's a good guy. His work is he drives all around Central Mexico. That's his job. He knows all those streets. We should hire him. Okay, well, let's hire Armando. Okay, cool. I'll let him know. Okay. So I show up to León, Guanajuato in January of 2015. And there's Memo. He's waiting for me, you know, at the airport. And he's like, damn. So I'm like, Memo. So I go up to him and I hug him. And then behind Memo is this guy who's about yay high. And he's got a big old cowboy hat. He's got those shiny Border Patrol glasses. And he's got a toothpick. And he's like, he's behind Memo. And then he shakes his hand. This is Armando Razo Sierra. Okay, hey, good to meet you, Armando. He's got the grip strength of a bull rider, you know. All right, Armando, good to meet you, your driver. Okay, so we get in the car. We got to go pick up Sandy. Sandy's waiting at the house. Her dad, we have to talk to her. Her dad's real traditional. But let me talk to him. He's family. Let me talk to him. So we show up to Chaco de Pantoja. We find that we go to Sandy's house, and her dad's out front. And Memo says to me, Tim, listen, that's her dad right there. So you just stay in the car, okay? Just don't say nothing. I'm going to get out. I'm going to talk to him, okay? If you see me, then you come down, okay? So he gets out. They're over there talking. And then Dad just, and then Memo looks over at the car. Hey, get it. So I get down. Yes. So I go over there, and then Dad just looks at me. So, and he asks questions. So what's the hotel situation? She's got her own room. She's got, okay. Memo? And she's getting paid, right? Of course she's getting paid. Sandy! Sandy comes out, all of her equipment, she was ready, she comes out, she gets in the car. I feel like we're Ocean's 11, but there's only 4 or 5 of us. Ocean singles, we're cruising in the Jeep now. It's a little tiny Jeep, and we're actually cruising up the road. And way at the end of the road, here's a true story, y'all. Way at the end of the road, there's a sort of a hunched over old man. He's got his little hat off to the side. He's got his mochila, and he's waiting at the end of the road, just staring at the car. Just staring. At that point, Memo looks back and he goes, hey, Tim, I gotta tell you one more thing. So, My tío Leobardo, he's like 87 or something like that. He heard that we were gonna go, and he wants to come. He's not gonna take no for an hour. That's him waiting for us. That's my research. That's the research team right there. Yeah. And I posted this one time on social media, and Armando responded, "You didn't let me comb my hair." So the first family, now here's the synchronicity. This is incredible. The synchronicity is incredible. So the first family we went looking for was in Jocotepec, Jalisco. I'm going to share the families with you now. The first family was in Jocotepec, Jalisco. And Memo said to me about a couple of weeks before we took off, he said, "Hey Tim, I don't know if this is I don't know how this is, relevant, but listen, my daughter, we live in Visalia, they're in Central California, my parents live. My daughter, her boyfriend, his last name is Miranda. And his family's from Jocotepec, where the passenger Luis Miranda Cuevas is from. He thinks they're related. So he calls, look into it. Calls my dad and says, he is related. So what happened, listen up y'all, what happened was one of the descendants, way down the generations of one of the passengers, found one of the descendants way down the generations of one of the passengers, and they became a young couple. They were like 19, 20 years old. And so Memo says, hey, his name is Pablo Miranda. He says, call us. Well, the passenger's name is Luis Miranda Cuevas. He says, his primo is Pablo Miranda. He says he works for the municipio's office in Jocotepec. All we got to do is just go to the municipio's office and ask for him. So we show up to Jocotepec. We're like, Ocean's 5, right? Everybody's got their equipment. We're going into the municipio's office. We get in there. We go up to the desk. We're like, we're looking for Pablo Miranda. And the lady's like, ¿Quién? Pablo Miranda. ¿Quién? Pablo Miranda works here. We talk to him. She gets on the phone. She says, no. We laid him off about a week ago. He no longer works here. Hey, Memo, tell the story. Tell the story. The story's power. It's got power. Tell her the story. The power of the story. It moves people. Tell her the story. Well, so Memo tells her the story, and then she goes, yeah, I can't give you the information, sorry. So there we are. We're kicking cans, going out the front door. We're in the placita. That's a beautiful day. They're having the fiestas, fireworks, and popcorn in the air, and children running everywhere. And we're out there just kicking cans, and Sandy's like, polishing her like lenses, doing nothing. Don Leobardo's feeding the pigeons. Everybody's sitting there. And Memo looks at me and he says, should we just go to the next town? And I'm like, no, Memo, no. Listen, you guys sit here for a second. I'm just gonna go into La Huesera instinct, and I'm just gonna follow my abuelita's instinct, and I'm just gonna walk around a little bit. All right, don't go too far, okay? Don't go too far. This is main, but don't go too far, okay? It's all the same. So I was like, all right. So I start wandering around. I don't know. I'm not looking for anything. I'm just kind of being open to things. And then all of a sudden, I turn a corner. I turn another corner, and I look, and I see a beacon of light, and there's giant murals. Thank God for our muralists, right? Man, they bring a beacon of light to the communities. So these murals there. And on top of the murals it says, Centro Cultural de Jocotepec. Wow. Oh, well, I gotta go into that. So I walk over to the Centro, and inside the door is a smaller door. It says Biblioteca. So I'm like, oh, that's where all the superheroes are, the librarians, right? They wear the capes, they're in there, they hold the culture, they know everybody in the town. So I walk to the Biblioteca. And the woman's in there, can I help you? So I tell her the powerful story of plain English. She goes, God, I tell her the story, she goes, by then Memo found me actually. So, there you are, they're looking for you, man. I said, come over here, Memo, we're talking to the librarian. Okay. And she says, what's the name? I say, Luis Miranda Cuevas. And she says, let me make a phone call. The librarian makes a phone call. See? Okay. She ends up, she goes, here's what you're gonna do. You gentlemen are gonna all walk up the road, make a right. Make two rights, make a left, make another right, and another left, one more left, and then a right. And then you get to this giant metal door. It's a big metal door. You're gonna recognize it, and you hit it real hard. So we go left, right, and left. We get to the big metal door. We hit it hard. Boom, boom, boom. The door shakes. A little tiny latch. Can I help you? So we tell them the powerful story. We're looking for Irene Miranda. That's the name. That's who they told us we're looking for. We're looking for Irene, and she says, yes, hold on. And we wait another 5 minutes. Then they come back and unlock the door. They unlock it, open it up. We walk in. It's an elementary school. Children are everywhere, running around. Irene Miranda is the principal of the elementary school. So we go into the elementary school's the principal's office with the little tiny chairs. We're sitting in the tiny chairs, and we tell her the story, and she said, "That's my tío. Luis Miranda Cuevas was my tío." So she begins to tell us all these stories, but at the same time, because principals of elementary schools are also superheroes, at the same time she's taking phone calls, she's making phone calls, she's signing papers, and she's telling us these stories. By the time she's done, all of her relatives are in the office with her. And, we're all here. And she says to us, "But now you gentlemen, you have to listen up." She says, "None of us knew my tío, Luis. This is all secondhand. None of us actually knew him." So I said, "Is there anybody alive who would have known him? Is there anybody?" "No, sorry. Nobody. Everybody's gone. That whole generation's gone." But then a voice in the back goes, "¿Quién? Arturo, ¿quién? ¿Qué dices?" They all huddle. Arturo says Casimira's alive. Who's Casimira? Well, first of all, I should tell you guys, this is my geek out moment as a writer. In this search for this story, you want somebody to be named Casimira. That is a cool name for this story, right? She almost sees like memory. I was geeking out. I was like, wow, that is a great name, Casimira. Don't forget that name. That's cool. Arturo says Casimira's alive. No, Arturo, she's passed already. Arturo, she was old. No, that's my tia. She's alive. Everybody, get in my van. I'll show you where she lives. Everybody gets in Arturo's van, and we're going up the road. We get to Casimira's house, bugambilias, runs inside. She says, "Come on in, everybody. She's here. My tia's here." We all run outside. We all run inside the house, and Casimira comes out in a little wheelchair. And she's wearing a little beanie, like a knitted beanie, and she's cold. And she comes out, and we come inside. Arturo was really excited. We all come inside. We sit down, and then he says, "Tia, you're not gonna believe why these folks are here from the United States. You're not gonna believe this." And she says, "What?" He says, "They want to talk to you about one of your good friends, Tia." "A good friend, Tia." "A good friend." Arturo again says, "Luis," before he finishes the name, she says, "The one that died in the plane crash?" "Oh. That's the one, Tia. That's the one. Tell him the stories, Tia. Tell him." So we all sit down. And she tells us these stories, and she says, "The one thing I remember about Luis was that he was very adventurous. Very adventurous. He would do anything we asked of him. He would sew with us. He would embroider with us. My dad hated Luis. So I told Luis, if you want to come and see me, you have to dress like a woman." And Luis would dress like a woman to come and see me. He would put on the wig, the dress, the purse, and he would come, and my sisters and I would all gather around, and he'd be dressed like a woman just to talk to me. That was Luis, very adventurous. And I talked to him. Actually, I should show you. This is Casimira. And she said, "I spoke with Luis the day before he was killed. He called me from the detention center in San Francisco, and he said, 'Casimira, they caught us all, and they're deporting us by airplane tomorrow.' And she said, 'I'm so sorry, Luis. I'm sorry.' And he said, No, Casimira. No, I don't care. Because I have enough money now, because he's been picking strawberries in Watsonville. He said, I have enough money. Tomorrow when I fly back, Casimira, I'm coming back to ask you to marry me, and I'm going to bring you a mariachi." And then she said, so the next day, that's the last time I talked to him, and the next day, we went to the corner market, the store. His brother Luis, his brother Arturo used to work there. Antonio used to work there. And my sisters and I would go and listen to the radio, because Antonio always had the radio playing at the market. We'd go chat and make jokes with him, and we'd be dancing there on the corner, listening to the radio, all of us, me and my sisters. And we heard a news bulletin come on the radio. And the news bulletin said there's been a terrible accident. An airplane crashed, killing Mexican braceros. Everyone is dead.
Oh.
And I knew then something had happened. And we listened for the names. All of us stayed quiet and we listened. And they said the name, Luis Miranda Cuevas. You know something about me that I can never explain is that whenever I get sad or feel really sad, I start to laugh. I don't know why. I just start to laugh. So I sat on the curb and I just started laughing. And my sisters thought I lost my mind. I just sat there laughing. So I said to her, Casimira, if Luis had returned and he had a mariachi for you, what's the song you would have wanted to hear? And she said,
Voz de la guitarra mía, al despertar la mañana, quiere cantar su alegría a mi tierra mexicana. Yo le canto a sus volcanes, a sus praderas y flores, que son como talismanes del amor de mis amores. México linda y querido, si muero lejos de ti, que digan que estoy dormida y que me traigan aquí, que digan que estoy dormida y que me traigan aquí. México lindo y querido, si muero lejos de ti.
so it's been 13 years that I've been searching for these families. On the 75th anniversary, I wish I could share with you all the stories. I wish I could, but I can't. It's too many stories. But I'm going to kind of do a brief overview of some of the families just so you can see the people that I've been in touch with over the years. This is Jose Sanchez Valdivia on the left. He actually came here working as bracero because he wanted to be a baseball player like his hero Babe Ruth. He only came here for that reason. He told his daddy, I'll go help you work, but he wanted to play baseball. And in fact, he ended up playing for what is now called the Mexican League. He was one of the first players that began that whole Mexican League, which was founded in Stockton and exists to this day. He was one of the first baseball players. Betito, this is Alberto Reynosa Carlos. The baby he's holding there is his niece, Ofelia, and this is Ofelia there.
Wow.
And that's their family. And down here is Elvira Perwan. Elvira was his girlfriend. He was an artist. He used to paint and embroider and do ceramics. He was the youngest passenger killed. He was 18 years old. This is Francisco Duran Llamas. He actually, his family said that they believed he was actually an American citizen also because his father was from Kansas. But he never knew his father. He was raised in Mexico. But he ended up later in life, before he was killed, he went to Kansas and lived there. In fact, was fluent in English. And his family said, we don't know why he was looking for his father in Kansas, you know. But they told me, but you know what's something very interesting? He looks a lot like this guy. He was also from Kansas, who had also gone into Mexico in the 30s and 40s.
Yep.
The same. Rosalio Maria Estrada. I just found his family. They just found me. They're from Bakersfield. And he was supposed to be here tonight, Luis Estrada, that's his grandfather, but he ended up going to Jalisco to visit his grandmother and to find more information. So he's in Jalisco tonight. This is the family of Apolonio Plasencia Ramirez. He's not in the photograph. These are all of his siblings. I like to think that the shoes down there are representative of his absence. But Apolonio's relative is with us tonight. Armenia, can you stand up? So then there are years for answering questions. And 2018 was that year. It was a special year. I got a phone call. Actually, it was an email. It was an email from a man who said, my name is Mike Rodriguez, and I just heard your radio. I heard you on NPR or something like that. And my tia is Maria. My family is really excited to hear about all you've done, and I already ordered your book, and I'm already. This is my tia. Tell us what you need to know because we got all the information, and it's wonderful. And I said, let's talk. So we began to have conversations. This was in 2018. And one of the conversations he eventually told me is he said, we believe we know who those blue baby clothes were for. They had to have been for my father, Mike Rodriguez Sr., because he was the oldest born child that Maria would have known and been close to. And he was living in Tijuana at the time that she was being sent back to the border. And she always had sent clothes and things like that for her family. So they believed that the baby clothes, the blue baby clothes, were for Mike Rodriguez Sr. And the Rodriguez family's with us. Let's start with Mike. Mike, would you want to stand up really quick? Done here, and I want to say the other special thing that happened in 2018 that had never happened before is the California State Senate formally recognized the accident, and they also issued a formal apology, and they actually invited myself along with the families. As you can see, Jaime Ramirez, some of the families are there holding the portraits of their the passengers. Also, Joan Baez is there with us. You can see Joan Baez is there over there. She sang the song. She was there too. The Latino Legislative Caucus contacted me and said, we want to honor this, and can you all come down up to Sacramento? So we did. Something really interesting happened here. So this is something really interesting that happened. So my son Salvador, he's there with us, right? And they're reciting the names in the Senate on the floor. And all the senators are sitting down at first as we begin. But then my son, who's been to these events many, many times, Salvador, he started to whisper as I have him in front of me. He starts to whisper after every name. He starts to say, "Presente." He's just whispering that. And finally, the senator turns back to him because I'm kind of like, and the senator turns back and tells him, so Salvador starts to get louder, "Presente, presente," after every name, and it starts to grow. In the Senate floor, it starts to get louder, and the senators begin to stand up. And everyone begins to say presente in the room after every name. It was a powerful moment. You can see it on YouTube, actually. It's still there. And you can also see my dad giving the politician the stink eye. Just to keep it real. So, before we close tonight, I wanted to invite up Mike Rodriguez with me, because we're going to also invoke the names of all the passengers. All the names in blue are the families I found, and all the names in white are still the ones that we have to find. So Mike, come on up. Actually, let's do this side so you can have the microphone. Whatever. And you're welcome to please. Miguel Álvarez Negrete.
Presente.
Tomás Aviña de Gracia.
Presente.
Francisco Durán Llamas.
Presente.
Santiago Elizondo García.
Presente.
Rosalío Estrada Padilla.
Presente.
Tomás Márquez Padilla.
Presente.
Bernabé García López.
Presente.
Salvador Hernández Sandoval.
Presente.
Severo Medina Lara.
Presente.
Elías Macías Trujillo.
Presente.
José Macías Rodríguez.
Presente.
Luis Medina López.
Presente.
Manuel Merino Calderón.
Presente.
Luis Miranda Cuevas.
Presente.
Martín Navarro Razo.
Presente.
Ramón Paredes González.
Presente.
Guadalupe Ramírez Lara.
Presente.
Baldomero Torres Marcos.
Presente.
Ignacio Navarro Pérez.
Presente.
Román Ochoa.
Presente.
Apolonio Plasencia Ramírez.
Presente.
Alberto Regosa Carlos.
Presente.
Guadalupe Rodríguez.
Presente.
María Rodríguez Santana.
Presente.
Juan Ruiz Valenzuela.
Presente.
Wenceslao Flores.
Presente.
José Sánchez Valdivia.
Presente.
Jesús Santos Mesa.
Presente.
Frank Atkinson.
Presente.
Bobby Atkinson.
Presente.
Marion Ewing.
Presente.
Frank Chaffin.
Presente.
Woody Guthrie.
Presente.
Thank you. Playwright at Los Gatos Deportee.
Grapes are all in hand, the peaches are rotting. The oranges are packed in their creosote downs. They're flying back to the Mexican border to take all their money to wade back again. So goodbye to my Juan, goodbye Rosalita. Adios mis amigos, Jesús y María. You won't have a name when you ride a big airplane, and all they will call you will be deportee. We died in your hills, we died in your deserts. We died in your valleys, we died in your plains. We died in your trees, we died in your bushes. Both sides of the river, we died just the same. So goodbye to my Juan, goodbye Rosalita. Adios mis amigos, Jesús y María. You won't have a name when you ride the big airplane, and all they will call you will be deportee. Is this the best way we can grow our big shoes? Is this the best way we can grow our good fruit? To die like the dry leaves and rot on my topsoil, to be known and no name except deportee. So goodbye to my Juan, goodbye Rosalita. Adios mis amigos, Jesús y María. You won't have a name when you ride the big airplane, and all they will call you will be deportee.
Thank you all. Thank you, Anna. Thank you all as well. We're really kind of short on time. I hope that we could do a longer Q&A, but at this point, we're kind of really short on time. I also didn't bring any books, and that was an intentional move. I didn't want to sell anything tonight. I just wanted it to be about the families and community, you know, and the spirit of those passengers. But what we will do is maybe just take a couple of quick questions. If the, Mike, want to come on up just as a representative of the family? Yeah, come on up, please.
I can't go alone.
Emilia, do you want to come on
You
up?
Gonzalo.
We're just going to take one or two questions because we have to wrap up here too. So, is there any questions from the audience or anything that anybody would like to ask any of the families also?
Yeah, one of the things that when Mike first called and said, "Is this our aunt?" and I said, "Yes," but we didn't know the full story. in the whole family, not everybody knew the story. And all I knew is that my aunt had died on a plane heading home.
Yeah.
And when Mike reached out,
My God,
so my mom was Maria was his sister. But Tim, I want to thank you for enlightening us and bringing the story to our entire family and giving us an opportunity to learn, because it brought us all, I think, closer together. And Sandra's mother was able to tell us. She died shortly after telling us more about my aunt. But I want to say thank you to you for bringing that.
Thank you for saying that. Gracias, thank you. Any questions? Oh,
I
yes,
just
Juan,
want
go
to say
ahead.
something as part of this family.
Yes.
I just want to say, yes, I'm so glad that we're able to find out who these people belong to, so to speak, as a gringo. And so, but these people that were on this plane were extremely smart. And they should be celebrated. Every one of them, from what you said on some of these people, had a goal. They had a purpose in life, and they had families that loved them. So that's what I want to put through this.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
That's my stepmom, back.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, you used the term bracero. Were they in fact part of the bracero program, and why were they being deported?
Yeah, they were part of the Bracero program, but they were also being deported because, and some of their, at least in the families that I found, in some cases, because their work contract had expired. It had expired. But you know, also there's a lot of gray in that area too, you know, what it means to be expired in terms of your Bracero card. Sometimes what would happen is, you know, they would breach the contract. If they had come here, they would have to be assigned specifically to one particular farmer. And they would go there, if that farmer was mistreating them in any way, but they would hear from the other Braceros, hey, the farmer across Highway 99 treats people better, they would go work for that farmer, and now they were in breach of their contract and therefore quote unquote illegal. So there's, you know, the situation, a lot of gray in that area. But, Rodrigo.
Jim, how much did they encompass the Central Valley as far as, you know, it was Colinga, but as far as how far did they go as far as you found out in regards to the reach of them working the area?
A lot of them were actually working or had been in that area for quite some time. You know, Stockton was the original pilot program for the Braceros. They had first shipped in like 2,000 Braceros by train, and then from there it grew all across the country, right? Because by the estimation of the farmers, it worked. But some of the families, like Maria's family, they were in Fresno for a while, you know. Some of them were in the Colinga Huron area. So all the families at one point or another had touched down in the valley to work.
And it depended on what was being harvested at the time.
Yeah.
You know, my mother, which is Maria's sister, accounted for picking cotton at one point and then going to work in a different field with grapes, and now it's strawberries, so it just depended on the season.
Seguir la pizca.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, this is still ongoing. There's still, so then there's gonna be another book.
Well, all they will call you, when it came out in 2017, there was only 7 of the families I had found at that point. I found 6 more since. And I already finished the second book. I just haven't found a publisher for it yet, but it's done. The title is They Call You Back.
Awesome.
I got the book, and I just want to let everybody know that I also got the Audible version, which he's narrating.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
They let me do it. I had to audition for it. It's crazy.
They paid you scale.
One quick note, when you mentioned grain area, I actually spoke to a gentleman, a friend of the family, who was a bracero in San Diego. And he said that one time their contract ended, but that the owner of the farm or the ranch actually hid them for a month because he didn't want them to leave, because he needed them still for the next harvest, which was like a month away. So he hid them until the paperwork went through, and then they were okay, and then they got a new contract for the whole group.
There were a lot of loopholes that farmers were working on.
Tim,
Richard.
Tim, forgive me, there's other people that have their hands up, but you have become a master storyteller, and I know that you have dreams of narrative filmmaking, but you've got to film this version of it because it's fantastic. And you've got to do it with families present. We'll find a studio. You got to do this version of it. The other, and that will be in great spirit of your book, the docu-narrative drama of your book. And you and Ana have just become master storytellers. You haven't. We can't wait for this.
Right. Woo.
We got Matt Damon. We got to do this. To play one of the pilots. But you got to do this Al Gore environmental version, urgent, on a soundstage. You got to do this one.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just wanted you to share with the room how long this took you from beginning to carrying on now. How many years?
13 years. In 2010, my son was 2 years old and my daughter was 5. And now they're 18 and, you know.
I wanted the room to know that.
Yeah, for the team. Yes.
Hi, I just, you know, as I was listening to this because there was a musical component to it, I kept thinking about Hamilton. And there's a lyric in Hamilton where it says, "And they will know your name." And what's your name, man? My name is Alexander Hamilton. And I thought that that was the powerful thing about this story, that is, you know, that a man was willing to take all of his years to make sure.
We knew their names.
Thank you.
Just two more questions, because we really got to close. Yes.
Just want to mention that when you said the word Stockton, which is a grandfather. One of my good friends right now, his name is John Galindo. His father went to Stockton, but he got away and wound up in Iowa. And John, my friend John, was born in Iowa. His father became a farmer.
Thank you. Yes, you back.
I'm just wondering, are there any plans, or maybe there already is a formalized site there, with headstones and stuff, or is that already happening?
Yeah, I mean, that's what this is here. When I first found the headstone, actually, it looked like that. And that stone, it just says 28 Mexican nationals were killed. Rest in peace. And in 2013, after raising money, this is how I first found it in 2010. That's why I have no white hair at the time. And this is what happened in 2013 after raising money. Everyone, I would love to keep this conversation going. That's the intention of this book. That's the intention of this story, that we can have dialogue. But you know, I hope that we all carry this story out with us in the community, with each other, have these conversations. And you know, may you continue to just be about love and community and oneness.
I mean, she wants to share something.
Can you share how?
Yes, well, you know, you're one of the families, so yeah, you
Okay, so during COVID, without this staying at home, I started doing I had done my DNA, but I didn't do any, I had a lot of free time, so I started working on a family tree. I came across this girl from Belgium, and she just ran into me and said, "Hey, it looks like we're related. You have this Atilano placense on your tree." And I said, "Yeah, that's my great-grandfather." And then she goes, "Oh, well, that was my great-grandfather's brother." So we became third cousins, just chatting, internet. How did you get to Belgium? I'm here in Riverside. We're originally from Mexico, Jalisco. One day she sent me a link and she goes, "Have you heard of this song, De Ortiz?" Well, I'm Mexican, I listen to Hernandez, obviously, but never had I heard of it. So I listened to the lyrics and then I went like, there's gotta be something more into it, right? So I went to Google and I came across All They Will Call You, the book by Tim. So I reached out to her and I told her, "Hey, have you know, there's a book about it." And by then, of course, I bought the book. I didn't bring it with me today, but I read the book, and of course, Apollonia was not listed because of, like Tim said, a lot of the relatives hadn't been able to reach out to them. So I reached out to her, and she reached out to Tim, and that's how now, like, we're all. She's in Belgium, but it was through Google that I found him, and then now.
She's in the second book. She's in the second book.
Yeah, I'm just glad.
Thank you.
DNA works.
Thank you to the Plaza de Cultura y Artes also for co-sponsoring this event. They were so generous to us. The last minute. Thank you for all of your help, Darren, my parents here, Felix and Lydia. Thank you, Carolyn, Anna. Well, you have my number.
How do
You know where I live.
Yes, we're all here, so
Yeah.
some of us are very grateful for what you've done, so how do we help you in your endeavor?
That's a good question. You know what?
Because I'd like to
Follow
hear-
me on social media, and you will find ways that I will. Because I make appeals on social media often, and then I call families too, and I say, hey, you know, Mike and I have plans to go to Jalisco, so we're all going. I'm just saying, you know. So,
Caravan.
No, but thank you all. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Okay, have a good night. Be safe.